Infosys just completed 40 years, and there was an interesting comment that you made there that initially your thought process was to keep the kids out of the business, but perhaps that's not the best course of action. Should we believe that going forward your kids will play a larger role and participate more in the company?
After that initial thought, I had discussion with lots of thinkers in the US and a few in India, many in UK, many in France, Germany, Singapore, and they all felt that whatever principle I adopt, that should not come in the way of legitimate opportunity for any youngster. Forget about sons, daughters, nephews, that's not the issue. No individual should be prevented from the legitimate opportunity that is available to him or her as a citizen of this country. They said what I was thinking was wrong. What is important is that they should come through the same channel as the rest of the people. They should demonstrate their worthiness through whatever tests and qualifying examinations and interviews you do, and they should move up the corporate ladder in the same way as anybody else. And you cannot do reverse discrimination. And therefore, I was educated by many corporate leaders, many leaders in the area of leadership, by in the US and in the developed world and in Singapore, and therefore I had to revise, because whenever I hear from people who provide thoughts better than my own, then I salute them, I accept them. That's it.
Well, talking about your kids a bit more, you pointed out that when they were growing up, Infosys was your first priority and family came second. Do you regret any of that? Would you change anything at all?
Well, I regret it because there were, most of the time I was traveling abroad, I was meeting prospects and clients. At home I used to leave at 6 a.m. and I used to return by 9. But within that, whenever I was in the country, I would take, my wife and I would take our children to have dinner with them and get them toys or whatever it is. And we kept them to the extent possible as happy. And my wife did a brilliant job of tutoring them at home. And both of them one did a PhD in Harvard, another did an MBA from Stanford. You can't expect more than that. They did pretty well. More importantly, both of them have turned out to be value-based individuals. And so to that extent, I don't regret. I don't regret because of the extraordinary role that my wife played.
I'll come back to your wife in a bit, but just recently I saw some pictures of you holidaying with your daughter as well as your grandkids in Goa. But what was conspicuous was your missing son-in-law. Is the responsibility at 10 Downing Street keeping him very busy and not able to visit you?
As a foreigner, I don't want to comment on any issue of a foreign country. So therefore, I would like to abstain from making any comments on that.
No, sure, but I was just intrigued and curious. Have you visited 10 Downing Street yet? Any plans to visit soon?
No, again, I don't want to discuss those issues.
Sure. Let me come back and talk about Mrs. Murthy. And there is one story or rather anecdote that I was reading wherein how you and her had an allowance of 300 rupees per month for books, and that was a very strong link between you and her. What are the books that you are reading at this point of time? What's the classic that you would probably recommend to all the youngsters?
Well, I read more of physics, mathematics, and computer science. I don't read management books, I don't read history, I don't read any of those. One of the interesting books that I am reading is the best writing in mathematics that's produced in the US every year. I am reading the 2020 version.
Okay.
Then I am reading a book on puzzles by Martin Gardner. I mean, I try to solve some. I take a long time, and then I look at the answer if I'm not able to do that. And I am also reading a book on economics in one lesson. But those may not be interesting to most people because they bring me happiness, and that's what I do.
Well, absolutely. And what brought you happiness was also Mrs. Murthy, right? With Women's Day just right being around the corner, anything that you want to say to her, or anything for women as a whole, do you think we're doing enough with respect to narrowing the gender gap in the country?
Well, obviously, we have not done as much as some of the developed countries. So we have our task cut out. We need to enroll more women in higher education. We need to enroll a larger number of women in technology and engineering. Though I must say Infosys has done a reasonably good job. I think the year I left, 2014, it was almost 50% were women among engineers. But I think there is a lot of work to do because Infosys is more like an oasis. So that's not the way to measure India's progress. So overall, I think we have our work cut out.